We are a 21-year-old startup.
Yep.
Why do you still consider yourself a startup?
We've seen a lot of creative agencies as they grow and they get successful.
Yes.
They tend to slow down or they don't reinvent. So we want to retain the passion of a startup.
A lot of people have that misconception, right? Branding is about creating a logo.
Clients who pay for branding are not there just for a good looking
Yes.
logo. They need a good looking logo for something else. So it's
That
got
aligns with their vision.
at the end of it
also.
is attracting more consumers, and that happens when a consumer has 10 options and they choose you.
Yes.
And that happens when a brand can communicate the USP.
What is one biggest challenge that you have faced with your clients?
I think what we don't enjoy is when there is no logic behind it. When you're doing everything in their interest, you know that the decision they're taking is going to go wrong, but they say just do it because I'm asking you to do it. Clients who know their stuff, who expect the right thing, who are talking objectively from a business perspective, we love.
I wouldn't say it's a negative aspect, but one challenge that I have found is like, because people know you, all the inquiries that come to you and the client wants to speak to you.
You break down your day and you look at two things which as a CEO you should do is revenue impacting and revenue generating.
Nice.
Anything else you should be delegating. So let's say if I can make a really good PowerPoint, probably better than everybody else in the team, but if it's not impacting or generating revenue, I shouldn't be doing it.
Like they say, AI is not the challenge, but somebody who uses AI will become
For
a
sure,
challenge. For you,
100%.
right?
Yeah. Other one, of course, is ChatGPT. What you can do with ChatGPT and ChatGPT 4 specifically is phenomenal. And also at the same time, you've got to not lose your hand skills.
Yes.
So it's very easy to go down this rabbit hole.
And then it becomes very difficult to do something
to
manually.
draw or
after that.
write or copy becomes, your brain starts. So it's important to have that discipline to switch, even though it's so
switch.
easy.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bilna Sandeep Show. Today I have a very special guest on the show who probably do not need a lot of introduction. If you have been into an entrepreneur side or a branding or marketing side, you have probably heard his name already. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Sajith Ansar.
Thank you for having me on the show. Honored to be here.
And I'm so happy you made it today. I know you had to cancel a few appointments and there was a little bit of confusion, but you are here today. And
I'm glad I'm here. Looking
thank
forward
you
to this
so
conversation.
much. And I'm sure there's quite a lot of things that we can look at learning from you, because I've been following your journey through social media and other channels, and I've heard quite a lot about you. And I think we never had a chance to meet. I think we met at a few events, but never had a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah.
So this is going to be my chance to learn quite a lot from you, because we are somebody in the starting first 2 years of our business. And I know I've heard from a lot of people, one of your tagline, you say, we are a 21-year-old startup.
Yep.
So what is behind that? Like, why do you still consider yourself a startup?
So we coined that because one, we've seen a lot of creative agencies as they grow and they get successful.
Yes.
They tend to slow down or they don't reinvent. And I met a lot of creative agencies which are not keeping relevant with the time.
Because the market keeps
Because
changing.
the market keeps changing. One. Second is the way clients behave changes.
Yes.
And internally also we have a philosophy where it's not about how big the client is, it's how big they can become.
Yes.
So it's important
How
that
the
you look at
possibilities.
So every client should be seen as if it's your first. And so we wanted to retain the passion of a startup.
Nice.
So when you're a startup, there is that energy, everybody's hands-on, you go out of the way. It's almost like if it was your first day, how would you treat a client? So that soul we want to retain.
And you maintain the whole energy, right? What you had right in the beginning, and that is the reason you
And
go
from the 21-year-old, it is about the experience. It's the amount of projects we've done, the processes, systems. So because you've been there for so long, you know what not to do. You know the experience. So you want to retain that learning. So we're not just a startup. So it's the hybrid model of both, that it's crazy passion, it's fun, but at the same time, it's super organized. It's a lot of experience in every segment we get into because it's 21 years, it's 2,000 brands. So it's that mix of both these.
You would have had quite a lot of learnings over this 21-year period, right? So branding is an industry where a lot of visual element is involved, right? For example, like we are into performance marketing side, so it's very easy for us to set KPIs saying this is the revenue. It's a black and white. We achieve it, we don't, or maybe we achieve 70%, 80% of it. Like a client might come saying our target is 2 million in a month, and we might be able to achieve probably 1.75 out of it. But I've heard you mention in one of the interviews that in branding also you look at the ROI of it, right? So how do you convince the clients and come to an area where you link it directly to the revenue side of the thing?
Sure. So it's very difficult to quantify it from
Yes.
data and science, but what you can do is quantify it from an objective.
Yes.
So what we've seen is if you speak to the client from their language and we understand what is the real reason they've come to us, and if everything is engineered towards that, because most creative agencies start to speak about the creative
Yes,
aspect,
yes.
or they try and put their own prerogatives or objectives into play. So the moment the client starts to trust that you've got their back, then the ROI starts to come in, especially with branding.
Yes.
Clients who pay for branding are not there just for a good looking
Yes.
logo. They need a good looking logo for something else. So it's
That
got to
aligns with their vision.
at the end of it
also.
is attracting more consumers, and that happens when a consumer has 10 options and they choose you.
Yes.
And that happens when a brand can communicate the USP. So for that to happen, you've got to dig in, understand what's unique about the client. That's why branding is not just a logo exercise, it's actually a business solution.
A lot of people have that misconception, right? Branding is about creating a logo. So what is that general misconceptions that you have in the industry of branding? Like,
But I think at the same time, a lot of the people in our industry has helped that.
yes.
So it's not only from a client perspective, because you hear clients who've gone to multiple people, and you'll have creative people who are speaking purely from their own perspective.
Yes.
So they'll have one style of design. So if you have a luxury brand or you have a low budget F&B brand, the whole style has to be geared to what the audience has
Towards
to
what
see.
they want, right?
So if you start pushing your agenda, or you're giving options for the sake of it, or you're not on time, or you're moody about it, or you don't pick up the call when the client comes, all that creates that aura that creative industry person is somebody you have to control, you have to
Yes.
handle,
Yes,
or
yes.
they're being subjective, and then the relationship starts to deteriorate. So I think in many cases, the myth has been added by a lot of facts.
Okay. So what is one biggest challenge that you have faced with your clients, like maybe, over the last 21 years? Like, what has been the toughest kind of clientele, or what is that?
If I look at it, as an agency and both me personally, we love the challenge of clients who are sharp,
Yes.
clients who expect a lot. Those are things we welcome. I think what we don't enjoy is when there is no logic behind it.
Okay.
When you're doing everything in their interest, you know that the decision they're taking is going to go wrong, and then there's a power play. So there are clients who want to prove that they want to make a point, and it may be detrimental for their own company, but they say just do it because I'm asking you to do it. So when you're treated as a vendor and when you have the best interest, that is something which we don't enjoy. If I look back, but clients who know their stuff, who expect the right thing, who are talking objectively from a business perspective, we love, and we don't mind
Who are open to the ideas that you bring to the table?
Yeah, and
as
even
well,
if they're not, but if they know their business and they're talking logically, we love that. Or if they have unnatural timelines, but it's because of a certain situation, we understand it.
like
But there are
something
some
is opening.
it's
like a
opening,
store
and,
is
and,
opening.
and there is a scenario where they have to get it done because if somebody else has let them down. But there are clients who will, even though there's no deadline, they will say yesterday.
Okay.
They will put pressure. They will create scenarios where they're not looking at, they're taking you for granted.
Okay.
So I guess those are things we don't enjoy, but
Okay.
we can adapt. We adapt to it, but then we realize that we love clients. Our ideal client are people who there is a mutual respect. You'll end up becoming a friend. They trust you because you have the best interest, and they tell the whole world about you. That's an ideal
Yes.
client, and who value the other person and don't take you for granted. That is an ideal scenario.
Yes.
But yes, in a real world, everybody may not be the same, and which is also the reason we try and ideally we work with the key decision maker. With the branding project, if the CEO is not involved, we've seen it tends to go, there is
go in
something
the
else at
different
hand.
directions.
Either the person has got some other agenda, or they don't want you there, or they're worried about their own job. So the agenda is not for the company, it becomes personal.
It becomes personal. So in such situations, have you ever had a situation where you had to say no to a client? Like, no, we can't take you on board.
For sure, many times. In fact, we say a lot of no's. So, it's important also as an agency, because your reputation is important. You don't say it for these reasons.
Yes.
So either it's a budget aspect, or
Yes.
because there are times when we are also open to adapt our budgets to what the client needs when it's a long-term perspective for the
long-term
client. It
perspective,
looks like
yes.
this client is going to be with you there for a
Yes.
long time. But there are times when you know that your gut feel says, and that there's a sum of a whole bunch of reasons
Yes.
that you know that this client is not going to get the best out of your service, not anything else, not for
Okay.
not personal like or
Yes.
this. It's just that I don't think as a company we can do something
that
good.
It impacts them probably.
And we will
right?
end up doing bad work, which will
Yes.
spoil our reputation.
Yes.
So as you grow, you also got to protect your reputation. Not only as you grow, I think you got to look at
Do
your
it right from beginning.
reputation right from day one. Don't do things which you're not good at. Don't take up stuff, or even connect people who you're not sure of, because your personal
Yes.
brand is so key for a company.
Yes. And now, since you mentioned about the personal branding side, right? How important is, like, how do you think, how important is personal brand for a company? Like, now I know if I look at Idea Spice versus Sajith Ansar as a
Sure.
brand, a lot of people know Sajith Ansar, right? So is it really important that the founder has that?
I think it depends from industry to industry. I've
Yes.
seen in the service industry, and especially if you decide to stay boutique,
Yes.
law firms, design companies.
Yes.
So a lot of them, it's very difficult to remove the core philosophy of the main CEO or the
CEO,
founder
of
away
it,
from
right?
it. So two things happen: either the core philosophy of what is unique about the founder becomes the
Brand
same
itself.
personal brand. So it's a
Yes.
reflection. So if the CEO is somebody who is scientific in nature, and that's the value he's giving, and that's usually the reason how the brand goes from point A to point B. So you look at systems, you look at hiring or training, which repeats that. If the founder is somebody who likes to give things on time, then the company
whole team
gets the
also
same.
has time
So
with it.
you'll find organized people come into disorganized founders and become disorganized. So
Yes.
it is infectious. So I guess very difficult to switch. We've tried it. We've tried making it a very professional business, pulling the image out. But at the end of it, you buy into the fact that you know this person's value is the core
Is
of the
core
company.
of the company.
And I guess for service industries, it's going to be there. Even when you get multiple partners,
Yes.
it's how the founding journey goes
Each
in.
partner's personal brand also then starts being
Which
into
also you
picture,
see
right?
when a company is acquired and it's got a certain values as a merger and acquisition.
Yes.
A lot of the change management is about how do you retain the culture.
Of
Suddenly the
previous.
clients will feel that things have changed and suddenly it's
Yes.
become too professional, or it's
Or
very
too
cold
lax,
or too
or, yeah.
transactional. So
Okay. So now, as myself also, I'm just starting out, just 2 years, but I've been focusing a lot on my personal brand as well. And one, I wouldn't say it's a negative aspect, but one challenge that I have found is like, because people know you, all the inquiries that come to you and the client wants to speak to you, right? So how have you evolved? Like, I know you have a team, you have a bigger team, and you're not, like, as an entrepreneur, you have probably 8, maximum 10 or 12 hours in a day, right?
Sure.
So how do you do that? Like,
I guess two things. One is if you break down, and there's an interesting way to look at efficiency,
Yes.
which is you break down your day and you look at two things which as a CEO you should do is revenue impacting and revenue generating.
nice.
Anything else you should be delegating. So let's say if I can make a really good PowerPoint, probably better than everybody else in the team, but if it's not impacting or generating revenue, I shouldn't be doing it. Or if I can write copy better than somebody else, but that doesn't. So even if let's say for example, if I'm discussing with you about performance marketing, it's going to give me business and I'm having a discussion that's going to impact my revenue. I should be
Yes.
involved with that. So likewise, when a client comes in, there is one part of it where you blend the business and the creative part, which is a very difficult skill set to replicate.
Yes.
So I tend to look at putting my time there. Then I play the client internally. So the team presents to me.
Okay.
I give feedback as if the client were giving feedback. So we are trying to hone your skills on what you're really good at, which will allow your billing value to go up.
Okay.
So everything else you remove yourself from, and you get people who are better than everybody else. So we've got people who are really good at the account direction, who are
meeting.
fantastic with clients. So clients enjoy being
love
with them.
being with them.
So they don't miss you. Or there are people now in design who are fantastic at the finesse and the refinement, who are far
Yes.
better than me. So then the clients don't miss them. So likewise with the other areas, we've started now doing social media. So we've got experts within that field. So the clients know that, look, I've got this person because he's going to take you from this journey to here. And in marketing, there's something called primacy and recency. Primacy is the first time you hear,
Yes.
and recency is the last experience.
Last time you have heard.
So, and a lot of owners tend to go to the client in the beginning, do all the selling, and they disappear. And
Yes.
and then the clients complain, look, I don't remember you. And the last thing the client remembers is the end of the relationship. So it's important to be there when you close,
Yes.
after the project is over, to go and meet them,
Meet them.
or personalize something. Like we also like to personalize our brand into a coffee mug or some kind of a
Yes.
gift,
so that
and
they
probably meet
remember
up.
you even after the
Yeah. So it's not just a
project is
primacy,
done.
and if you just close a deal and you disappear, that becomes transactional. So it's important as a CEO to take
still
yourself.
maintain that relation with the client.
If you're a boutique company, especially,
Yes.
this is not a
Yes.
formula which works for the larger
Yes.
things, but I think you will find it's an interesting when you read about, say, startups, and there are books from Silicon Valley. It talks about do things which can't scale.
Yes.
That when Airbnb, the story goes how the founder, he used to go to all the Apple stores and open the the laptops on display would have,
Okay.
so not Airbnb, Pinterest, the screens would be Pinterest.
Okay.
So they have to go and change it so people get awareness on it.
So people see more
People
of
see
it,
more
right?
of it. So,
Okay.
so I think if you can do those things which can't scale, you also create entry barriers.
Yes.
So let's say at 21 years, if you're still doing personalized stuff, that is so difficult for someone to replicate or take your client away.
Yes.
Which is called an entry barrier to someone else coming in and saying, I'll give you lesser price
Yes.
and
yes,
take them away. So at times when a client sees you're going and making the coffee for them yourself, that adds that
value.
that
to
value
them.
of an entry barrier. Look, that it's a small little thing, or
Yes.
if you know a client is planning to launch in a certain market. The other thing which we do now, it's effortlessly, and I guess it's also because of and we'll speak about that in terms of networking, that if you're looking at connecting your clients so they can help each other in business,
Yes.
that's a big value add, and that actually
yes.
comes naturally even to the whole team. That when the client is there and let's say for example they're planning to launch in Africa,
Okay.
we have another client who we work for in Africa, and they
Which
can
you
open the
might
door,
be
we
able to
connect
them,
them, and it's important that there is nothing in it for us,
Yes.
and they've got to know it, that it's purely because we want to make sure you
Give
succeed.
that extra value to them as
So,
well.
so
right?
those are things I feel as a owner, if you can get involved in these small little things, then there's a big entry barrier.
Yes. And it's like you mentioned about the revenue impacting activities and delegating what is not directly impacting. So there is this whole concept around working on your business versus working in your
Sure.
business, right, for a founder. And I'm sure you might have evolved right from 21 years back, how much you were involved versus, So what is the ratio like at that time and what is the ratio currently?
In fact, I went through that scenario, I read about it, and I tried doing that also, where as a owner you should be working on. Again, that depends from industry to industry.
Yes.
For our business, ideally, if you clear your time where you're constantly thinking about two things. One is what next? How do you improve processes? How do you create efficiencies? What are the new markets? How do you expand? If you're not thinking on those, if I just simplify just working
Yes.
in, if you can get enough time to be able to think about what next for the business and how do you reinvent yourself? How do you stay relevant?
Yes.
These are
In the
important
market,
since we're
yes.
talking about a smaller agency or any business.
Boutique agencies.
And working in, if you look at the key aspects where you're working in also, which is going to impact the business.
Yes.
And it's important that you say you give it to someone for sales. If you're not good at sales, learn to be good at sales.
Yes.
And I think every owner has to learn sales and learn marketing, and nobody will speak at as much passion as you.
Yes.
And there are tools which, for example, it's important to keep training yourself. And I think how much ever big you are, how many ever years you run, you've got to, there's a lovely quote by Steve Jobs,
Yes.
which is stay hungry, stay foolish. So what are the new skill set you've got to learn? And you've got to be learning what's happening today with AI, what's happening today with the different trends, what's happening on social media, what are youngsters doing, what are the new trends with business. So, and I think as a owner, if you keep staying relevant with that, that's very critical.
Right? So like what is maybe in your case, what is the percentage? How much time do you do on the business and how much do you do in the business maybe?
Again, there's can't really put as a formula, but I would look at it as I've also broken down my time in discipline because I enjoy design.
Yes.
So earlier I wasn't doing, I was getting into everything else, and for us that's our core product.
Yes.
And so within design I culled it down to, it's the initial part of this is the client, this is their business, and this is what is a solution. So I focus on the initial part and the team takes the rest forward.
The concept idea comes from
the core
you, right?
concept.
Yes.
Meeting the client, I'm involved with the team, because your first meeting we're actually listening. It's case taking, right?
Yes.
It's in detail understanding. These are aspects which I am focused on, which is in the business.
Yes.
Otherwise, everything else is on the business, and on the business is not. It's an organic time. It's every time. No, you're on the treadmill. You're driving in the car. Every network, every new person you meet, every conference you go for, every book you read. It's all
on the business.
So what I think of it is you got to engineer your time to be able to meet people who are smarter than you and look at concepts which are bigger than you, and that's the only way you can work on the business.
Yes.
If you just sit and think on it, it's not going to happen, because you already reached your glass ceiling, your comfort zone.
Yes.
So if you're improving yourself and your thought, that's the other way of working on. So there's no percentage of time, it's engineering every single thing. I know you're part of a mastermind with Muni, so I think it's important to have a mastermind which pushes you, which asks you, who are smarter than you in other areas, which is another way of working on the business, where you're held accountable, books, podcasts, and try out new stuff. Like if you don't get your hands dirty with AI, it's going to you're going to be left far behind.
Like they say, AI is not the challenge, but somebody who uses AI will become
For
a
sure,
challenge for you,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And now, since we also mentioned about AI, what is your take on what's coming up in the branding side in terms of AI?
No, I think it's not even coming up in many places. It's already there, and I have a lot of my friends and industry thing who are speaking about how bad it is, and they're sitting outside the fence and judging AI. But if you think from a client's perspective, and if they can get a site which you can put in what you like and is throwing logos at you, or you can write your content strategy. So a lot of these creative areas where you can make social templates through this. But it's not as simple. So it's about, like you said earlier, it's how you use it. So the whole science of using all forms of AI. So even Midjourney, there are people who do it. What pops out at you has got to be tuned in through trial, through error. So AI works when what's in your mind, you can bring it out exactly the way you want it.
And give it as an input to the AI.
Yeah, so that only happens based on the prompt, both ways.
Yes.
And there are now multiple tools, everything from data crunching. I think the beauty of AI is the efficiency.
Okay.
So you can actually do 10x with the same number of employees. So efficiency which comes is the other aspect. And for branding, I think it's already there. In many ways, content writers are already finding it difficult. Music, voiceover artists. Video when Quora comes out and they open it for the public, it's going to be a difficult thing for the industry. Yes, Hollywood is having strikes on it, etc. But it's going to be tricky, and unless you know how to use it smartly and put it into relevance, if you know how to use the data, if you can train language models, and it's easy to actually train. So we've started almost a year back. I've got a thread which is trained like me. So with all my experience poured into one thread, so you can ask any question and answer like me.
Like you are answering.
So if the team has something, so like that, you can create multiple language for the AI.
And from the branding perspective, what are the AI tools that you use in your industry? So it should be an eye-opener for a lot of people who are into branding itself.
I think a combination of AI and apps. It's a mix of both. And you've got to push the boundary. So internally, both me and the company, we use Midjourney a lot for imagery. And once V6 has come out, you get super realistic, which you can't tell the difference.
It is really an AI or not.
It's proper. You can't tell the difference, and that again comes from the prompts, and that comes from practice. And you will know you've hit it when you've got a picture in your mind and that's popped up the way exactly you wanted it. So you know what to write. So you can decide what kind of a camera lens it's got to look, how much of a range it has, what kind of lighting is there, what's the backdrop, how realistic it should be, what the fabric is, if it's high dynamic range or it's a hard rim lighting.
That level of detail in giving the prompt.
So the prompt has got to be there. So Midjourney is something which we use a lot. And then if you combine Midjourney and Photoshop, again, you can take it. Now on Photoshop also you can type in prompts and combine, but it's still not out there yet. Firefly is not reset. So I would say for images, Midjourney is up there.
The best.
Runway is very good for videos, but again, there are a lot of glitches. So you've got to edit. You can do smaller, lower second ones on there. When Quora comes out, I mean, we're all waiting for that. That's going to go. Now, Midjourney is also started where you can, if you generate one image, so if it's made on Midjourney, you can make the same image do multiple stuff. So the character stays. Earlier, it was all different characters.
So you can create a character and
that can do multiple things. So it's very easy for social, for campaigns, for clients, even to make a comic or a storybook. That starts to become a thing. And you can do different styles like watercolor or for children, etc. The other one, of course, is ChatGPT. What you can do with ChatGPT and ChatGPT 4 specifically is phenomenal. Google also with Bard, they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. Apple is going to be integrating it into it. So you've got to stay ahead. I mean, we use these ones a lot and then we run them through a lot of different softwares. With CapCut, you can do special effects using these images and it's got templates.
Combination of different tools that comes
you've got to push it through different tools. You can take Midjourney, then put it through Runway to make it animated, then take it through CapCut to do the editing. And this can all be done on the fly on the phone. That's the beauty of it.
That's the best part.
Sometimes when you are talking to somebody, you could be finishing off the thing which is there.
So I know, like, you keep yourself updated, right? What about your team? Do you train them or do you recommend, is there any courses or something that?
So I guess with this right now it's hands-on. it's about reading. There are so many articles out there
yes.
which are there. So I was personally very interested. So I got in very early, and I would pass on the teaching
to your
the
team.
team, and we played a lot. Everybody, it's not just the creative guys.
Okay.
For us, the servicing, the content, everybody is up to date, and everybody plays with. We take one thing. We have contests. Nice. On the images created. We have a lot of fun stuff.
I think I've seen a few of your stories that talks about those.
We do a lot of quirky stuff with this, and so even this, I've been teaching prompts, language patterns to teams. So it's important that you keep training the people around you. Yes. So for example, my kids are, I would say, up to speed with AI right from the beginning. In fact, CapCut and stuff. My son came. He's 14 to the office to teach them how to use CapCut. My daughter came in to teach the other softwares, even Runway and stuff.
They're
updated to even teach the agency. So, and also at the same time, you've got to not lose your hand skills.
Yes.
So it's very easy to go down this rabbit hole.
And then it becomes very difficult to do something manually.
To draw or write or copy becomes... Your brain starts, so it's important to have the discipline to switch, though it's so easy.
From one to the other.
Yeah, so it's like taking a pill to lose fat versus going to the gym. It's important to do, to sort of make sure you do the right way.
Nice.
So at least for me personally, I make sure I love drawing monks, so I keep sketching that as a form of meditation. So it's important to switch that. Even with the kids, it's important to say, no, first you write this before you push it. Or even the art of writing a prompt is also a beautiful writing habit.
Yes.
And people who write lazy prompts get lazy responses from AI.
From it. Now that you mentioned about monk, that's something that I had written down. Sure. What is monk and koi fish?
Sure.
What is that about?
So, there's no meaning really. So I had gone to Kyoto in Japan long back.
Okay.
Before that, I had done Vipassana meditation. Okay. And I found that I think meditation is the best form of getting to know yourself.
Yes.
And most of us, when we want to change, there is always things from our past, how we've been brought up, our circumstance, things we have heard and seen, which become our subconscious. Which pull us back or is self-sabotage. A lot of these I could clear up through meditation, and I wanted that as a reminder.
Okay.
And when I went to Kyoto, the whole Zen philosophy is about doing the same thing without expecting an outcome.
Yes.
And using that to be in the now. So you see these guys who are drawing on the floor there with the stones they're doing, and there is no outcome. He's doing that.
Okay.
So that was an interesting symbolism. So I started drawing a monk and a koi fish, and I had the exact same thing for the last 7 years without wanting to perfect it or this. And I would draw and I would blank out.
Okay.
And blank out with all my senses. So I could be in a meeting, I can draw, I can listen, but it's just a way of staying in the now.
Okay.
So also as an outcome, the drawings started getting in. And for me in my mind, the koi fish would come to the monk and ask this really complicated question.
So are you actually thinking yourself as the koi fish there, or
so I think it's just conversations with myself, because I don't talk so much about it, but in a way it's a conversation where usually you have a complicated thought, and if you look at it, it's a very simple way to look at it if you just be in the now. So it's these. So in fact I wrote a book which I've just, it's been for self, this thing I'm looking at. Even I've done a physical copy, maybe publishing in Amazon, which is every day the monk is there and the koi fish asks a question. So we're doing the series of art now. It actually combines this with AI. And there's a client of mine who's printing these on these diamond polished blocks.
Very nice.
And it's art which you look at, it calms you. So they're coming out with a range, is going to be retailing soon, which will have a little story of this in those.
So I was actually reading a feature about you on Gulf News, which talked about the doodling part of you in the meetings. I love doodling as well. So right from college to school days, I used to sit and doodle during the class times as well. And I've been caught by the teachers, and they're like, why are you, you're not listening. But recently only I found out it actually improves your focus.
It does.
Because anything you ask me at that time, I answer. And I see the same thing was there in your article. So do you always doodle while you are in a meeting or event?
So I've also realized now that not so much recently, because I've found my listening to get even better when I'm fully focused, because I get it. Sometimes the client doesn't feel the eye contact. So I may be listening.
They'll be like, you're not listening.
I'm not listening. So sometimes people can misunderstand it that for a lack of interest. So I use it in places where I'm comfortable, where they know I'm listening, and not for new people. So I'm completely tuned in.
With a new person, you're like, I have to look at them.
I have to look in this thing.
Okay. But it is a form of meditation
for
you when you are doing that.